The truth is, sometimes we get comfortable with the ordinary, sitting inside the lines others have drawn for us, when there is an entire blank canvas of a world waiting for us to trust fall into solutions to questions not even asked yet, to rise, revise, and recognize that remarkable is not only possible, but it is necessary. It is the result of daring to imagine beyond this partition of parameters, always onwards, upwards, and forwards, towards the whys of ideas redefined, the what-ifs of partnerships, the how can we improve this. This is more than a common belief that in order to succeed, we must always see details 3 steps ahead. This is not about spotting market trends or hopping on bandwagons, because many others have been there, and quite frankly, so have we. But we are also about people. Shuruq, the right fit in the right place, like perfectly timed happenings matching skills with partners already found, where the sum of parts can create platforms only teamwork lets you reach. No, not you, us, plural, collective, a home field advantage, expertise meeting the opportunity of what we did, are doing, and will do, investing in holding open doors wide enough for impact to walk through. So we continue being the outlier, the deviation, the above and beyond expectation, the ones uncomfortable with being ordinary. Today is the day. Join Shuruq Partners.
Welcome everyone to your weekly Founders Crushin It, where every Wednesday at 4 p.m. GST, yes, we changed the time, we go live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube and grab a conversation with one of the successful founders in our region to learn more about their journey and the industry. If you're watching this through our LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube, remember to follow, subscribe, and click that bell icon to get notified with all our news, events, and updates. This show is brought to you by Shuruq Partners, the leading tech investor in the Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan. And I'm your host, Tariq Fouad, Head of Growth at Shuruq Partners. And I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever you are. Today, we have the pleasure to host Andy Choi, the founder and CEO of Quotabook, a South Korean-based fintech infrastructure startup founded by ex-VCs and Silicon Valley engineers. After being incorporated in August 2019, the company has been funded by more than 20 VCs, accelerators, and banks within its first year. They are on a mission to help startups and VCs unlock and sync their crucial equity and corporate governance data through an online equity platform so that they and their shareholders can communicate through a single source of truth. The company has become the leading solution used by most of the top startups and VCs in Korea today. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the great intro, Tariq.
Well, it's our pleasure. We love Quotabook. We've been also avid users of Quotabook, and I would love to give everybody an opportunity to understand what Quotabook is all about. So maybe a quick introduction of yourself and Quotabook will be helpful.
Awesome. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm Andy Choi from Quotabook. To give you like a short intro of what we're doing right now, Quotabook itself is a equity management platform and also a fund management platform. So what that means is equity management, it touches points from basic shares, such as like the shares that you've been issuing, up to equity instruments that can become shares, like which could be like equity awards, like RSUs or like stock options, or any sort of convertibles like safes, notes, CVs, BWs, or etc. So for the startup side, you can now manage your cap table and all your equity seamlessly through a modern online software, and that gets synced with your investors so that the investors will own their own fund admin portal where they can see and manage their portfolio companies from dozens up to hundreds way more easily. And so it's becoming kind of like the middle ground bridge between your shareholders and your company. And so this way, we keep one single version of the data at most once, so that now everyone keeps on the same page, and sharing and managing all these crucial information becomes way more easier.
And Andy, I think you're very humbly putting Quotabook out there. As usual, you're such an amazing person. But from experiencing Quotabook, it seems like you have far more a comprehensive approach towards equity management and fund management. Can you maybe explain a little bit more what else is in that ecosystem, and what is that vision that you have for Quotabook?
So yeah, that's a great question. So we started out with Quotabook, which is the fundamental, like the equity and your shareholder network managing platform. But what we've noticed is the interactions between a portfolio company and its investor isn't all about just like managing equity and doing like corporate governance. Like for example, we started out as a cap table, but more and more we've been expanding on more touch points. Like for example, now like just managing equity is just the start of managing a whole entity, which means now people who are shares or who are issuing shares, they have to go through several corporate governance issues, such as like shareholder meetings, like board meetings, any like investor rights, investor reportings. So we've been building up features that have been covering those points as well. And these have been another crucial part of the whole Quotabook ecosystem. But that's just up to these corporate governance and data management part. What we've also noticed is Quotabook also has been seeing all these needs between the investors and the startups. That does not stop on those like corporate governance and management side. It's also about the interactions, like the communications, like networking, value adding, like being able to help out the startup to grow more faster and better. And so these points are, for example, like being able to communicate with your portfolio companies easily, also being able to make the startups know each other, like mingle, like create and set up new networks, and also give out as many benefits as you can. Like for example, all the like the credits or the discounts or any like benefit programs that the startups or the VCs know, and they can share for the perks and benefits. And so we set up a additional platform that can manage all of these separate pillars, which is we've recently launched it, and it's called Quota Space. And so it's a platform where the VCs and the startups can mingle and communicate way more better. So through this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to cover all the aspects and all the interactions that you as a startup or you as a VC might have with the other counterparty. So this is trying to build up this whole, I would say, like one for all tool / platform where all you have to do is just go through us, and it'll help you manage your portfolio companies way more easily, or manage your investors way more easily. So that's been another recent change from us. Yeah.
That's amazing, and I must say that my experience with Quota Space is that it's probably as powerful as Slack. So I really appreciate your efforts there, Andy, and the team for putting in a tremendous amount of effort behind Quotabook and its different products. I'm interested though, what appealed you to the capital and equity industry and markets, right? Or fund management. Why did you approach fund management from that own perspective? Is there a backstory there?
That'll probably require me to actually touch more of my background. So I was actually a software engineer as a first start of my career. And so I used to work at different industries, which touch from the finance industry up to like the design industry as well. So I had a shallow but wide background across all these industries as a software engineer. And then after that, luckily I had an opportunity to join a VC firm over in Korea, which made me to switch over to move from Silicon Valley over to Korea because of that job. And so because of that lucky opportunity, I worked as a VC for about 2 years and a half. And during that time, what I noticed was I think it's still the same across the world, except for the States, maybe, because states already have lots of these like equity management platforms. But what I noticed was like these like investments or these like tech companies, they're all very savvy. Like everyone's going out for the most like cutting edge solution. But when it comes to like back-end office management, everyone's still using Excel sheets. Like you're talking about the most cutting edge technology, but on the back-end side, you're like still manually putting in all these infos on Excel sheets for your shares and for all these like corporate governments and all these like documents and stuff. And so I was wondering, oh wow, like this is like very important information. Like you can't go wrong with putting like single number of shares being different for these shareholders, and you're going to be having tons of problem. But why is everyone still stuck on Excel sheets? And I thought it was just a norm, like, and it gets super annoying when you get more and more shareholders on board. Now you have to like update these Excel sheets every once in a while. Now everyone's requesting those Excel sheets at their own time period through their own medium, like whether it be through like text messages or emails or whatsoever. And all these like backtracking for all these like shareholder meetings and stuff, like no one keeps in touch. No one keeps track of those. So you have to like dig in through emails or all these like papers sent over. It's a huge pain in the neck. But in Korea, while I was working as a VC over there, like every single startup was working like that, and it was the same for the VCs too. So I thought it was the norm, and everyone was just living with it until a point when, luckily, I was being able to invest into a few U.S. companies, and they started out sending over their cap tables and their equities through internet services like Carta, for example. And so at that point, like that was the first time that I saw that. I was like, oh wow, there was even a solution for this. Like I thought I thought Excel was like the far like the best
the be it all
solution, yeah, that everyone had thought about. And so like after seeing these type of solutions, I was like quite mind blown. I was like, wow, okay, like this is saving tons of time. Like it's very obvious for the founders and also the investors. Why not see if this makes sense for this ground, like the Korea, Asia, like Middle East, and etc. Like let's see how the reaction will be outside of the States. And so even before starting the company, I was asking my fellow like investors and founders about this problem that they were facing and how they wanted to solve this. And it seemed like everyone started believing that using a software for this was going to be the future. Kind of like how software is touching every aspect, like HR or like sales CRM or like whatsoever. This like equity management part, like this still has been so outdated. But now because there's so many startups popping out, and now because there's so much investments being made, and also the cap table gets changed quite easily also because now everyone's issuing like equity awards and stuff. Like people have been feeling these needs more and more because the startup ecosystem has been becoming way more dynamic. And so we thought, okay, it seems like everyone's pulling up this need, and it's definitely the future to go to. So why not start it out for our own version of it? And so that's how we got started, and that's how we've been being able to save tons of time and money for the founders and the investors that have been using us.
Love that, Andy. That's I think it's always important to see that history, because it tells you whereabouts something started, and we'll speak a bit about history and the journey of Quotabook. But first, I would like to remind everybody watching us today this is a great opportunity for you to ask Andy and Quotabook any questions that you might have. It's also a great opportunity for you to throw in questions for Sharuk Partners, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Just remember, not your questions down on the comment section below, and I'll try to make sure that we cover them prior to the end of today's chat. Andy, I wanted to ask you, I bet journey at Quotabook was not all colorful, beautiful parks. I think it's certainly ups and downs and troughs and valleys. Would like to know a little bit from you. How did that journey go since you've, the inception of this idea and as you rightfully said, that history there? How was it your experience bringing in VCs and other equity players or capital players onto Quotabook?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, if we start talking about all the painful stuff that has been behind this journey, like there's so much to talk about, but I think several stuff comes on top of my mind. Like first of all is like this could be a good and a bad thing about this business. Like the good thing is there aren't many players like us in the market. It's kind of like a blue ocean where few solutions would probably be searching for their own like dominant position in the market. But there is a reason for that, and we've been feeling this reason more and more like during our journey. The biggest reason is like, first of all, these like equity management and fund management parts, there's so many different terms. There's so many deep domain knowledge requiring terms and features and processes. Like for example, when we were talking with an LP about how to integrate with their system, they had almost like 1,000 parameters that they wanted to be sent from a GP to an LP. And so like it's very complicated, and it's because everyone has been doing their own job in their own way. There wasn't like a single, I would say like a single protocol or a single a definition of how to deal with this data. And so that's been becoming part of our responsibility now. Like being able to match and collect all these seemingly different data, but actually they're all the same, and being able to provide a unified protocol which can help these startups and investors communicate easily through a single channel. And so like for example, like if you're just looking at like shares, for example, or maybe like stock options, for example, like there's so many different vesting options. There's so many different not just like vesting like methodologies, but also like breaks in the vesting. Like for example, some people want to halt the vesting, some people want to cancel the vesting in the middle.
Different nuances just on vesting itself.
Yes, that's right. And like if we're talking about all these like convertibles or like preferred shares, like these redemption rights, conversion rights, like preferences, like even for safes, whether it's like pre or post money, whether you want it to be like structured in a certain way, like there's so many different ways that you can actually touch these equity data. And so this has been the hard part for us, to actually solidify all these different data and then being able to unify this. So it's been a hard part of the business, but I do think like once we be able to finish most of the like majority parts, then it's gonna make the founders and the investors' lives way more easier, and it's gonna save so much time. Now everyone can be on the same page, even when they're talking about a little bit of a different definition about a specific same term based on the law of how you can raise money. Now like everyone can they can easily stay on the same page, and it's going to be unifying so many processes. So we do think it's a hard job, but there's definitely going to be lots of rewards coming on top of it.
And that's a great segue, Andy, to a follow-up question that comes to my mind is it's such a and you brought up the the existence of competition out there in the market, specifically in the US market, right? And it's more and more becoming a competitive landscape with more players coming in, trying to tap into solving such a complex issue or problem. Where would you think Quotabook's strengths lie in making sure that it grabs and owns this market? I think you've touched upon a few here and there, but what would be maybe the top strength or the top three strengths in Quotabook?
I think probably number one would be the domain knowledge expertise that we have. Like, for example, all our co-founders are all ex-VCs. So we know how these investment terms work. We know which processes or which actions are needed between all these different interactions among the startups and the investors. And also, it's not just the co-founders, but we have more ex-VC or ex-VC backend office people who have joined the team. And so due to this, this has been helping us a lot for building out the features that are needed and also being able to help with all these different use cases and edge cases. So that's definitely been helping out a lot. And also, it's not something that can be picked up easily. Like, for example, being able to learn about how these terms work and how even like funds become created and how funds even communicate with their LPs. Like even more on the VC side, like it gets way more complicated. But we've luckily been able to get some people who have both the VC mind and the product mind. So that's been a great help for us. And then I think the next biggest the advantage that we might have is the network that we have. Like, for example, not just through our own like ex-VC co-founders and employee networks, but also through our shareholders as well. So reason why is this platform, because we have to take care of so many examples, we wanted to have as many types of investors become our shareholders so that they can share their own pain points and their own knowledge that they have. And so that's why I think it was mentioned during the first part of our intro, where we have dozens and dozens of VCs on our shareholder. So this network has been enormous, and it's been helping us out a lot. So that's, I think, another big advantage that we have.
So you would assume, because the pain is quite high, that converting VCs or converting others that are in the capital market would be kind of a relatively easy thing to accomplish. Yet I probably think it's on the contrary. It's actually very difficult to get them over with. It would be great if you can highlight some of the challenges that you've kind of faced, converting your clients, right? And what do you see changing in terms of behavior, right? Specifically as well, that you're a startup that have come from Korea and is currently expanding in MENAP. How was that journey? What do you see changing when it comes to VCs and other capital market players, and what are some of the challenges, the myths that you've probably have to encounter or educate to actually get them on board?
So onboarding a VC or even onboarding a startup, it's definitely not that easy. Reason why is when we have to onboard a startup or even an investor, what we do is we onboard their full history. Because snapshots are not enough. Like snapshot, if you're just going to be managing snapshots, then you're leaving out the history behind. You don't know how these equity has been changing. If you don't have those changes, then from the fund side, then you don't have that the financial difference. Like you can't say how much you earned if you don't have that history. And so onboarding these startups and even the investors, like it takes some time. And also it takes some specialty and knowledge for that. So that's where our VC backend office people come in and help us onboard these complex data. And also because these data are quite complex, we have to educate how to dump the data on board. So these definitely are some hurdles on onboarding these clients quickly. And for a startup, it's just one cap table. But if we're talking about onboarding VCs, then it's multiple cap tables. And so the amount of work that has to go in gets multiplied way more if we're talking about onboarding a VC client. And also VCs, their investments are very risk-taking, but their backend office, I won't say they're quite risk-taking. And I definitely do understand it, because you should have zero risk when you're actually dealing with your finance data. So I can definitely understand why this atmosphere is there. And so being able to persuade them that this is not interrupting whatever business practices that you've been having. This is actually going to help you out more. This is actually way more secure. These are stuff that we have to actually make them understand. And if we do, then the onboarding gets way more seamless. But it's still a business where it's not a common practice. Still, even lots of VCs are still using lots of Excel sheets, and it's a relatively new way of managing your fund. So there's definitely going to be still some market education periods that we have to go through. But touching on the second question that you had, we're definitely seeing more and more changes for this. For example, we met a LP, which was a big one of the top 4 banks in Korea, a big financial institution, and they were still stuck with Excel sheets for a long time. But what they've been saying is their LPs of more than 100 funds, and now they do they have met the limit of doing all these paperworks by hand. And so that's changed them. That's made them actually face to seek more for a software tool that can help them out. And it's not just the LPs, but it's also the VCs and the startups as well. As the cap table gets complicated, people are they do seem to understand why these SaaS softwares like us exist and how we can help them out. So I think the market is definitely shifting in that term of I would say creating a more solid ground for equity management and fund management softwares.
I love that, Andy. I think a big part of it is trials, and you were generously offering something prior to us starting. So if you can maybe tell our audience about it, that would be great.
So yeah, it's I think most of the audience over here would be founders and investors. So our one of our biggest missions is to help people save their time and money from keeping off their hands from all these tedious and repetitive jobs. But these data are super important, so you cannot not do it, but you still have to do it efficiently. And so for the folks who are listening to this, we're more than glad to help people out. And so if you can send us if you send us emails inquiries to info@quotabook.com, then we're more than happy to give out special discounts. And it's not just special discounts for the service fee, but we also can waive all the onboarding fees as well. So feel free to reach us out, and we'd be more than happy to help you.
Super generous. Really appreciate it, Andy. So just to reiterate, startups and VCs out there, or LPs, if you're watching this show today, send an email right away to info@quotabook.com and unlock a special rate on their platform. Give it a try. You're going to love how your backend transforms with Quotabook. Thank you, Andy. Very, very helpful and appreciative of your generosity there. I think last question, Andy, that I love to get to ask all our founders is if you were to describe Quotabook with one word, what would that be?
Wow, great question. I think the single word that comes out of mind would be um, infrastructure. So we're building a financial infrastructure. We're digitizing all these complex financial information that were never being managed through software. So it's a financial infrastructure that we're building out, and if we build it out right, then it's not just going to be us using it. It's going to be generations that are going to be using it. Just like how people were able to send cash for money electronically, and once that's been able, like now we do it every day. Like and now that's like the norm. Like we don't send like paper money to people. And I think it's going to be the same for equity info and like fund info as well. So it's this infrastructure that we're building. I think it's going to be a really core part for the future.
Love it. Thank you so much, Andy. That was a beautiful chat today. For everybody out there, really appreciate you tuning in. Mustafa Yusuf is sending you his best wishes and best of luck. Thank you so much, Mustafa, for engaging in. And obviously for everybody out there who's watching this special show, remember to send an email to info@quotabook.com and you will unlock special rates for today only. Give it a try. You will see how that transforms your back end. Finally, if you're looking at us or seeing this show through our social media platforms, remember to follow us at Shuruk Partners. That's at Shuruk Partners. And if you're a startup looking to get funded, visit shuruk.com today. Finally, you can also grab Andy at info@quotabook.com or visit quotabook.com today to get to know them a lot more. Remember, we have shifted the time we air this show from 7 p.m. GST to 4 p.m. GST. So looking forward to seeing you every single week. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today and tuning in. And from myself and Shuruk Partners, I wish you all a great day and see you next.